Welcome to the 7th episode of ClashCast, lucky number 7. We are talking to you live today. I have my lucky, loyal co-host, Marcin Skok. Marcin, say hi.
Hi. We're actually not that lucky. We didn't win the Mega Millions.
We did not win the Powerball.
Oh, Powerball. My bad.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I won $4, and I used that to buy a Powerball in the next round, and I lost. But anyways, we digress. Today, we are talking about Apple and Microsoft earnings. And we've got a couple of quick bites in addition to that. I'm going to begin with the Apple earnings, of course, because I am the Apple fanboy. And then Marcin will continue with the Microsoft earnings, and we'll both beat each other up along the way because this is a clash cast, and we have to clash in order to retain our audience. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Fantastic. You're supposed to disagree because we're supposed to beat each other up.
That's why I was a little confused because I thought we were
it was
united in the same goal. I thought we were united at the same goal, and I could at least agree to that. But I guess no. I'm just leaving now. See you later. Bye.
All right, so let's begin with Apple. Obviously, it's a record-breaking quarter for Apple with $18.4 billion of profit, $75.9 billion of revenue, records across the board for profit and revenue, yet people are very disappointed, and the stock goes down, and my net worth goes down, because, hey, what more could you do other than a record-beating profit? Anyways,
I could say...
Go ahead.
I could say, it's expectations, and we were expecting more of a record. That's
right.
the thing.
We were expecting $76.6 billion, and we were a little bit short of that by roughly, $700 million?
Yeah, which is chump change.
Such chump change when you're talking about $75 billion worth of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
They dropped their quarter two guidance. It was expected to be $55.7 billion, and they're down $50 to $53 billion is the guidance that they've given. And this is going to be the first year-over-year drop since about 2003, which is, obviously a long time ago for the company, pre-iPhone, pre-iPad. I don't even know what their product lineup looked like in 2003. I'm sure it was those colorful iMacs.
Yes, colorful iMacs. I think they were about to do the ones with the white bases, and I think the iPod had just come out. Right?
Yeah, definitely. That was actually my favorite Apple. I miss those days. Things are much more complicated now. A lot of services now.
You think that's complicated? Wait until we get to Microsoft.
So anyways, despite these records, Apple's stock was down, and there's a possibility that Alphabet or Google, for those less savvy on the latest news, could surpass Apple's capitalization. However, who really cares?
You'd used to.
Yeah, that's right. Every time they would set the record, I would tweet about it. But, life goes on. So some of the major concerns around Apple's earnings were that obviously iPad sales continue to fall. And we can touch on this briefly. The iPad Pro was released in this quarter, but it didn't look like it did much in terms of reigniting the demand for iPads, which I didn't expect it to, again, because it's an expensive device, and it's I don't know if it targets the prosumer only. I think if you're a consumer and you have extra money sitting around, that you might get the iPad Pro, even if you're not a professional in any sense. But personally for me, and we talked about this, Marcin and I, a little bit earlier before the show, is that for the first time I'm actually thinking about upgrading my iPad. And for those who don't know, I have an iPad 3rd generation, so it'll be about 4 years old in March, and it's only about now that I've seen the iPad slow down to almost an unbearable speed, and now I'm, after 4 years, finally inclined to re-enter the market. So we're looking at a 4-year upgrade cycle for someone that loves Apple products and is I'd like to consider myself very tech savvy without being boastful. But 4 years it's taken me to upgrade my iPad. So I think that speaks to it. And the main reasons behind that is if you looked at how the iPad has changed over the last 4 years, the really only significance is a faster processor. The screen, my 4-year-old iPad is still a Retina device. That was the first Retina iPad that came out. So screen resolution, don't care about. Cameras, obviously, totally don't care about. I don't think I've ever taken a picture on my iPad. Other
You
than
you don't like you don't like doing that during concerts, really?
oh my god, those people annoy me so much.
Hmm.
Um, anybody that takes a picture with the iPad is, you know,
Especially at a concert where you're just like,
yeah, where you're blocking the 30 people behind you with this giant bright screen. But the front facing camera has gotten better since mine, which is good for video chatting. But, if I see the other person, a little bit clearer, does it bother me? No. Um, I'd say that one of the main things that are awesome about these new iPads is obviously the ability to multitask, which is something that should have existed a long time ago. But I think iPad has finally gotten up to a sufficient processor where it's a great customer experience, given Apple's philosophy around that sort of stuff. Touch ID they introduced into the iPad. It's great on the phone because you're always constantly unlocking your phone and
mm-hmm.
locking, checking it. The iPad you don't, consistently check during the day or unlock during the day. So if it takes you, an additional 3 seconds to unlock your iPad, I don't think it's a big deal. So really, the fact that the processors are now so advanced in my product is what I think has reinsurged my need to buy an iPad. But yeah, you're looking at 4-year upgrade cycle for someone that tries to stay on top of these things. So I think that definitely speaks to the declining sales numbers.
Yeah, so what I think, and I think you mentioned this before with the iPad Pro, is that a lot of people who were even in the market for an iPad, instead of buying an Air 2, because that's not been updated, they might have gone for the Pro, and that means that product line probably fell in sales faster. So there's a lot of complications, I think, to the line because the Air 2 hasn't been updated for, what is this, over a year at this point? Year and a half?
Yeah.
The line is a little bit stagnant in some parts, so I think consumers can see that they don't need to upgrade as fast, and Apple's trying to figure out what is significant enough to create a new generation. So the trends are they've been negative for I think 2 years at this point, but I guess just to be fair, we can give them the Air 3 to see if they truly change anything, and if at that point, then we might have to start looking at the whole point of the product line as a whole if the declines keep happening. Not sure.
Yeah, I think we're in a really situation for all industries, for not for all industries, for this industry, but for all brands. We're really in this hesitation. When I think about what's the ultimate setup for me, it's so confusing. I don't know. Do I get a desktop, a laptop, an iPad, and an iPhone? Do I get a larger iPhone, no iPad, and a computer? Do I, even with the Surface hybrid devices that are coming out, do I go with one of those hybrids and a desktop, a hybrid and a phone? We're in such a unique period where 3 years ago, if you asked me what the ultimate setup was, okay, it's a desktop, it's a iPad, and it's an iPhone. Simple. End of day. But now with all of these, with bigger screen phones, now we're even getting bigger screen tablets, but there's also the iPad mini. You have super light laptops, you have super fast computers. All of these things are sort of blurring the line, and I think it's confusing me when I go into the market. I can't imagine your average Joe Schmo.
We should ask Joe Schmo. Bring him on the show.
Yeah, let's have Joe Schmo as our next guest. But anyways, yeah. So when you see a lot of these numbers declining and some of them growing, Macs are down to 5.3 million units, and the whole PC market is declining. Tablets, I would assume if the iPad's declining, that I can't think of Samsung doing too well because I know that they always lag. It's a very interesting time period.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think devices I think they're just interesting now. It's not, you have to kind of think about it, but that actually hurts each category by itself, because there's just so much bleed over where people are not buying as much of one thing, they're buying a little bit more of one other thing, they're going to buy a little bit less of a third thing, and it just keeps moving back and forth as the features keep morphing and changing. All
right, when I was preparing for the show, I was thinking, has a bigger screen iPhone changed my usage of tablets or need to use a tablet? And consciously I would say no, because if I had a fast iPad, which I'm thinking about buying, and I'm still obviously thinking about buying a new iPad, I would say no, that it doesn't have any effect. But content on my iPhone, and I only have an iPhone 6, I don't have the 6 Plus, but I think maybe on a subconscious level, because the screen is bigger on the iPhone and because it's a a very fast device, that I might read more articles, I might surf the web more, I might video chat more, all on that device. Where on a 4 inch iPhone 4 5S or a 3.5 inch iPhone 4, I never really wanted to read articles on that thing. So we've seen in this quarter the iPhone growth actually slow almost to a halt, and I think one of the reasons behind that was just because of how dominant the iPhone 6 sales were. It looked like the market was really, really demanding a bigger screen phone, and I think the iPhone 6 delivered. And when the iPhone 6 came out and we had those and quarterly results, it was through the roof on devices sold. And with the iPhone 6 now, the being that it's such a fast device, it's such a beautiful device, and it's got a big screen, and I think it's everything that I want in a smartphone. I normally upgrade every other cycle. So when the iPhone 7 comes out, I think for the first time, in the past, it was always a no-brainer. I'm definitely going to get it. But I have to see what they come out with, because if it's just 3D touch and, a faster device with a different body, I don't know. I don't know, Marcin.
What about the lack of a headphone jack? Is that enough of a?
I don't know about that. The headphone jack really isn't that much thicker than the lightning port. And based on what I've read everywhere, and I have to agree, I think people don't really want a thinner phone. They would prefer a thicker phone with a longer battery life. Honestly, the iPhone 6 is so incredibly thin that, you come to a point where the benefits of a thin phone and the coolness of a thin phone wear away after a while.
Right, because it's already so thin that you literally, I mean, like not literally, but you can definitely tell the difference between an old Nokia brick and the current iPhone 6s. Whereas I'm sure you won't be able to tell the difference unless you hold them right up to next to each other between a hypothetical 7 that's thinner compared to a 6s.
Yeah, even with the iPad, if they slim down the new iPad, does it really make a difference?
No, I don't think they should. I think if they want to change anything with regards to dimensions, they can make the bezels smaller, but they don't really need to. But they should just use that for higher battery capacity or better processing, like you probably mentioned.
Yeah. And just a few more notes on Apple. Obviously, they've seen some interesting macroeconomic, global, international headwinds coming in. With, I think the whole economic market everywhere is currently on the fritz, if you will.
Yep.
But definitely overseas in China, they're having some issues there with their market. And it looks like India is a very exciting opportunity for Apple, based on Tim's thoughts on that.
Right, and then you get into pricing, but we're not. I don't think we don't have enough time or information to speculate on what they would do in this kind of a market. Would they cut prices? Would they go for the profits again? It's a big question.
So just a couple more notes. The Apple Watch and the Apple TV both had record quarters, and it looks like Apple is trying to shift the focus. I don't know if it's just this quarter because of obviously the negative things that they had to announce, but they finally broke out their services, and they put a lot of emphasis on their services, which is interesting because obviously their services have recently expanded through the roof. I mean, with iCloud coming out, obviously that was a big thing, but their storage pricing has gone down. So I think a lot of people are diving into that storage. And obviously Apple Music is going to be a big revenue for them, hopefully. So it's interesting to see them place more emphasis on services. I still don't think that will be their core business anytime soon. I think, hardware will always be their thing. But who knows what the future holds.
All in all, I don't think Apple will die tomorrow. Like, I don't think it'll disappear off the map. Do we agree?
I could say for 100, I would bet my life savings and all of my family members' life savings that Apple will be around next year.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a longer horizon. I might have to take you up on that. Ladies and gentlemen, Microsoft earnings. Oh boy, was I happy. Boy, was Nadella happy. And boy, oh boy, were shareholders happy. We had expectations of 0.71, that's 71 cents EPS, and they beat with 78 cents. And expectations of 25.26 billion, and they beat with 25.7 billion, which again is pretty much the same distance by which Apple missed, actually a little bit smaller, but that's the kind of numbers we're talking about here that mean the difference between your stock going up and your stock going down. So I'll break down, actually Microsoft breaks themselves down into three major divisions, and these three divisions all had strengths. The first one was productivity and business processes. So thanks to currency changes and, the macroeconomic headwinds and some businesses actually declining while, Microsoft focuses their attention on other businesses, the productivity and business processes revenue fell 2% to 6.7 billion. But things that did well within that division were Office 365, which is people subscribing to Office 365. That was up 70%, and now they have 20.6 million subscribers who pay either monthly or yearly. And that's versus people who used to buy those licenses separately, like you buy 2013 once. That's the kind of thing that has fallen. So that's what most of the decline in that kind of business was represented. So the thinking here is over time, they'll make up for those revenue losses with concurring revenue that occurs every year based on reliable subscriptions. Dynamics, which is a CRM platform, that's up 11% with seats doubling since last year. And that's it pretty much for productivity. Then they talk about the cloud, which is all the plumbing, everything that happens in the background on some websites for some apps. Their Azure runs a lot of this stuff in the background. Them, along with Amazon, are the two leading cloud players. So we have service revenue and enterprise services. This was up 5% to 6.3 billion. Their server products grew 10%, and Azure, which is their cloud storage, hosting, computation, that grew 140%, which is the huge driver behind a lot of the positivity around the company, where analysts are really focusing in on this number, and it continues either doubling, or actually I think the growth rate has increased as both Microsoft and Amazon actually take away market share from everyone else. Google, everyone else is barely a player in this market at this point, and it looks like they're going to keep growing. So the last one, which is a little bit more interesting because we consumers see more of this, is called the more personal computing division. And that includes Windows, devices, gaming, and search. So that was down 5% in terms of revenues to 12.7 billion. But you'll see why this division was more profitable than last year. Windows revenue is down 5%. That mirrors the market. And it was actually, I'm not sure why, but it was actually a little bit better than the PC market did last quarter. I think that might have something to do with enterprise sales or things like that. And then we have the Surface, which I think we can all agree is now a really serious business and one of the few, I think, device product lines out of any manufacturer for anything that's actually growing pretty substantially. So Surface revenue was up 29% since last holiday quarter, and that went up to 1.35 billion. We had the launch of the Surface Pro 4, which is a refinement of the Pro 3. That was finally the design that kind of kick-started the Surface sales surge, and then the Surface Book, which is a very interesting, but I'll agree with Nick, somewhat pricey device for some of the internal specs that it comes with. But people like the design, and it has some flexibility, so I think the sales will increase, especially since the Surface Book is coming to more markets this year. Xbox Live, they're focusing on the subscriptions and the users. Those grew 30% since last year, so there's now 40 million active users every month on Xbox Live. And Bing search revenue, which also used to be a joke, but is now a billion-plus business, and its revenue is up 21%. That's thanks hugely in part to that search bar, which you see next to your start icon if you're using Windows 10.
So they're increasing their search revenue by forcing you to search with them.
Yeah, but people are using it, right? So
yeah, I guess.
There we go. Any comments at this point on those high points?
I think the Surface is, good for them. Good for them that the Surface is a viable business. I think, obviously we all love competition. It makes every company better. So I think the Surface devices selling well will only fuel Apple and the minds at Apple to come up with a unique solution for if the future is hybrid devices. And, if the market speaks enough with the Surface, which it is in that trend, it'll force Apple to come up with some solution between an iOS, OS 10 merge, which we could see, in 6 months or in 5 years, so or never. But it's definitely interesting, and I think it's good for Microsoft that they had a great quarter.
And also, I think Google's looking at that with Android and Chrome OS, but we don't have to talk too much about those guys on this podcast.
Yeah, it's just amazing how sucky the Android operating system is on a tablet.
It's fascinating, actually. I heard it actually got worse since Honeycomb or something. It was like in 2012. They actually had tablet features, but since then they haven't added anything, and it's actually gotten worse because of some of the stuff that they've added on the phone side that makes it work worse on a phone, which is on a tablet, which is kind of funny. But
If you care about technology, I don't know how you can seriously contemplate an Android tablet. I think the people that are buying them are just people that don't care about technology, and since their entry price is so low, why not?
And then they leave the ecosystem because they have a crappy experience, and they go to iPad or something else. So
Right.
I think that's Android's loss in the long term, that they keep developing these crappy tablets and not developing the system. But we digress again. Alphabet's earnings are tomorrow. I don't think we'll discuss them too much, but that's for another time. So all of that was up and up. I'd like to kind of delve into one specific, and I can't call it's a weakness, but everyone knew it was coming. It was built into Microsoft's projections. They've actually been cutting back on this business, so naturally the revenue would fall. And that's the phone. And this is why actually the whole group's revenue fell, because the phone revenue fell 49%. And that was a huge, I think, $10 billion a quarter revenue that they got when they acquired that business from Nokia. And so that revenue fell down 49%. So they sold around 4 million units last quarter compared to 10 million. I'm not even going to talk about the feature phones because those are irrelevant. They actually still sell Nokia candy bar phones. Did you know that, Nick? In emerging
I did not
markets?
know that.
Yeah, they're labeled like the Nokia 3310, and they actually make new versions. They look like candy bars, and they still sell them. But they're definitely falling as smartphones become the premier choice worldwide. I don't think there's many feature phone buyers left at any price point at this point. So Microsoft, according to their plan, is scaling back production, markets, and carriers. So these fans say that they're going to retrench, they're going to make a Surface phone. Well, I just see a Microsoft that's retreating from the idea of competing head-on in a phone market with devices and perhaps their own operating system. Just for some context, in their life, since Windows Phone has started, they have sold 110 million devices. That's total, compared to 4.5 billion Android and iOS devices in the last 5 years. So that's the scale of the challenge that they've been working with. And that's what I think Nadella is saying. Guys, we have to look elsewhere for our into mobile. So fans have started to drop the platform, like myself. We've talked about my switch to iPhone, and I actually love Microsoft services on this, so it's not like I'm losing too much. I actually have a better, more stable platform on which to do my work. There's still the app gap. There's bugs. For some reason, the mobile side of the development is taking too long. It's almost as if they have the interns working on it in their off hours. So it's not just the interns. It's when interns have time to work on it. And the phones just don't appear to be a focus anymore. And I don't think Nadella would have... If Nadella was CEO when Ballmer had done the acquisition, I don't think that they would have gone through with it. But that's the past. And I think Nadella is forging straight on with his strategy to get as many of their services on as many devices as possible and make sure those services are loved, which I think is a good interim strategy while they try to figure out another way to grow their influence. So a possible future, perhaps instead of phones, they redefine the idea of these smaller devices, and they could have phone functionality built in, but thanks to Windows 10's flexibility and the universal app model, you could have smaller computers which let you can dock or stream to screens, and perhaps that's the future of Windows and Microsoft on mobile. So to summarize, overall a strong quarter. The cloud is growing, and the focus for Microsoft is on the revenue that it provides, not either Windows or devices. The idea for Windows is to get it into as many people's hands as possible, at least on the PC, and have them love it so that they can use it, use the apps, and so that Microsoft can have a viable app store. And I think we're on our way to that. So in honor of one of our favorite companies, we have decided to call a new section of our show Quick Bites. Do you understand this name, Nick?
I do, there's like an Apple logo but it's not a full apple. There's a bite taken out of it. And it looks like, if the person had a long time to chew on this apple, it would be a bigger bite, but it's a rather small bite, so they must have quickly consumed it. So therefore, quick plus bite equals quick bites.
And also, bytes are like a thing in computers where data
Of
is
course.
saved, so that's relevant.
It's bites with a Y. Is that how we're going to spell it, Marcin?
Sure. So, both me and Nick have a quick bite. That's something interesting from the news that we thought might be a big story, perhaps down the line, or something that's just, we thought was funny or interesting. So, I'll go first, I guess, and then Nick can tie it up. Rise of the Tomb Raider, which was an Xbox One exclusive video game, came, I think, last November, was announced for Windows 10, and I was actually very surprised to find that it's now a universal app, the first big game that is this in the Windows Store. So what this means is that this game is not built on the old Win32 framework where you kind of install an application, it leaves behind folders, there's DLLs that are files, the registry is modified, and this is just a self-contained application. Everything is included in one package, and the application cannot, tamper with others unless you set it up to hook into other applications. And it's just a much more cleaner and a much more safe, you don't have junk that gets left around when you uninstall, which has always been a problem with Windows applications. And I think that this is a good sign if they keep getting large developers, not of just games, or let's say Photoshop and things like that. If they can modernize their apps to this new universal app framework, we'll be able to have much more smoother running Windows PCs for longer, and these apps will be much easier to move between different screen sizes and different platforms. I was very happy to see that. Now for Nick, he actually has something about Apple in the news.
Yeah, so actually there's breaking news out there right now. I want to give our fans the latest and the greatest news. So there is breaking news. The iPad Air 3, there's just been a leak of a possible case for an iPad Air 3.
No way.
Which shows openings for 4 speakers, a rear flash, and also the smart connector, which is the first thing that showed up on the iPad Pro. So that is some breaking news, and yes, you can come to the conclusion that it's a smaller iPad Pro,
which is I think that was a logical next step, right? I think that's
yes,
what they had to do.
Those rumors don't have me completely excited, but are pushing me again towards a new iPad. But for our original quick bite, before this breaking news just came out seconds ago,
I have to post this up really quickly this show now.
Apple has hinted, Tim Cook in the latest earnings call, someone asked him about virtual reality and whether he thinks it's just a fad. And Tim Cook had responded that it does have cool and interesting applications, which of course sparks the rumor mill. Everybody's now, Apple's hiring VR people and they're acquiring this company and Apple's going to be in VR and there's going to be a HoloLens for Apple in like 3 days from now. I don't know. I think Apple does a lot of research and development on a whole bunch of different technologies. Whether we'll actually see a virtual reality kit from Apple, who knows what the future holds. Obviously, in 10 years, if virtual reality is what it is and we all walk around with glasses and we never interact with each other, Apple will obviously want to be a part of that market. I
would.
And if people are going to see me outside with a virtual reality headset, I'm going to make sure that it's an Apple one, right?
Of course you are.
So, again, rumors of virtual reality, rumors of a car, rumors of...
a TV, remember that?
Rumors of an actual physical television, yes. There are strong rumors of a subscription service for TV, which I'm very interested in. But yeah, there's also rumors for, a toilet and a kitchen and for a refrigerator and a whole bunch of other things.
I think a refrigerator and a toaster, too.
Yes, in one. Since Steve Jobs said no to stylus, and now Apple have a stylus. The next CEO will take away Tim Cook's response about a toaster and a refrigerator all in one.
There we go.
But who knows what the future has to hold? We don't know for sure. We can only speculate. But thank you for joining this week's ClashCast, and we look forward to having you around next time.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Marcin.